We're going to talk about an incredibly exciting debut that I recently finished, and that is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I need you all to read this, so let's get into this video. Hello, book friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hello if you are new. We are wearing my Clarice Lispector sweatshirt from girlparts.co. Get yours today. And that ends all of my advertisement for my friends' clothing company. I read Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, which many of you are reading this, I feel like, as well and have loved it. And I just need to make like a really quick review video to come in here and tell you that you need to read it too. I will be doing a more in-depth breakdown of it with Naomi over on the podcast, so I don't want to go too into the nitty gritty here, but I did want to have something on the channel to point to be like, you need to read this right now. So first of all, thank you to Knopf for sending me an arc of this. Per usual, I'm behind reading arcs, but I got to it shortly after it was released. So I'm actually doing fairly well. It is well loved and written up. I found myself mad that every time I picked this up to read it, I didn't have that much time to read it. So I was frustrated that I had to only get through 30 pages and then I'd have to put it down until I finally just made it the priority for whatever day it was. And then I basically just plowed through probably the last 50% of this. I will say that for me, this is not a like perfect 5-star. And that is because of something that I think will be a point of contention for some readers, and that is the sort of twist at the end. I personally found it to be a bit cliche. So for me, it's more like 4.5 stars. I mean, big what? Big freaking what? 4.5 stars. But I wasn't as into that little twist at the end, but I can see how it could be incredibly powerful and moving and absolutely make this book like clinch it for somebody. I just wasn't that somebody, but everything else about this book was top notch. Loved it. So what the hell is this about? Martyr is about Cyrus, who is a young Iranian American. He is 30. He is sober, sort of, and he is trying desperately to find meaning in his life, but he's doing that through this obsession he has with martyrdom and this obsession with finding a meaningful death, which ipso facto means that you've had a meaningful life if you have meaning in your death. And this idea of obtaining immortality through martyrdom, through having a meaningful death, dying for something. And also like his fight to tangibly hold on to his sobriety. It's incredibly difficult to enter the world as a sober person, a world that you used to numb with different things. He is also alone in the world. He lost his mother as a baby because her plane was shot down by US soldiers and then basically covered up as a mistake. They thought it was something else. We killed a passenger plane full of people. Sorry. His dad basically worked himself to death. They moved to the Midwest and he is a chicken farmer. He works like on an industrial chicken farm and he basically works himself to death. I think it's something like, if I can remember correctly, it's like the day he goes to college or shortly after he gets to college, his dad passes away from a stroke. So he's alone in the world. He has no mother, he has no father. The only relative he really has is this uncle that lives back in Iran who he himself is all messed up from his own experiences with war and PTSD and all of that. So he's not the best familial companion for Cyrus. Cyrus has a really wonderful friend slash lover in Z, which I loved him as a character. Cyrus eventually finds sobriety and he, like I said, and he's seeking meaning in his life, and he gets hooked on this idea of creating a collection of poems around martyrs and martyrdom. And he's working through that while also working through so many other things in his life. When they find that there's this artist doing an exhibit in an art museum in New York where the artist themselves is dying of terminal cancer and they are living in the museum And their whole exhibit is to just sit in this spot in the museum and talk to people. So people will come up, talk to her about whatever they need to talk to her about. And he decides that he's going to somehow he and Z are going to go to New York to meet this artist, to talk to her sort of about her art and his art and martyrdom and meaning in death and all things around death. And he goes, things happen there, and it's an incredibly, incredibly moving story. There are so many ruminations on like loss and death and life and immortality and the futility of life, the struggles of life. It is an incredibly well written story that is propulsive, and you find yourself, when you do actually have more than 3 minutes to read the book, rapidly churning through the pages because you want to know what's going to happen next. It is interspersed with some of the poetry from Cyrus's novel that he's working on, and you get to meet different martyrs throughout history through these poems. It's such an interesting look at that link between art, life, death, immortality, but also the ways in which just being a human in a world that is terrible, it's filled with tragedy, how that affects your outlook on life, that affects your choices you make in life. I love this so much. It is such a must read, and probably going to be one of the best books of 2024. You can mark my words now. I think it's going to be on a lot of people's list because it is just so stinking good. I was listening to an NPR interview with Akbar, and he said a couple things which I thought were really interesting quotes that I'm going to give you here, just about martyrdom in the book and things that are discussed in it. He says, art is a mechanism by which people have sought immortality for millennia, which is definitely something that is very fully discussed in this novel, this idea of having meaning long after you're dead, having some impact on this world that feels like it is mostly impacting you, like it is grinding you down. And how do you leave your mark back on the world? There's so many discussions that you can have that are of a philosophical nature during and after reading this book around life, death, and meaning. He also talks about how Cyrus is suicidally sad, but he doesn't want to waste his suicide. Everything circles back to this idea of, despite everything else, you want to have meaning. You don't want to just let the world crush you. You need to have some value. There has to be something that comes out of existence other than just living and dying. And the only way that Cyrus can see to have that is to die as a martyr, to be a martyr, to die for something, to have some lasting existence in human memory. And lastly, I really liked this. He says, Akbar says, the only way to win recovery is to die sober. You have a million chances to relapse. And I think that you see that struggle through a lot of the inner monologues of Cyrus's, where he is reflecting on what he used to do in a situation like this when he wasn't sober, and how difficult it is to be sober now. The author himself is sober. He has gone through recovery, and you can see how well versed, honest, and true Cyrus's experiences are. And I don't think that Cyrus is Kaveh Akbar, but there's definitely a lot of Akbar's experiences coloring Cyrus as a character, and it just makes him so much more real and tangible, which I simply adored. And I think this idea of inner monologues, this use of inner monologues, is incredibly important to my overall love of this book, and I think it shows the skill of Akbar as a poet, because these characters, Cyrus, his dad, his uncle, who, whenever they get their own POVs, the inner thoughts of these characters are so beautifully stated and so philosophical and smart and often dark and sad, but poignant and astute. I absolutely loved how perfectly crafted all the characters in this book are, and how Akbar has woven the narrative to go from past to present to person and unfold this story and this bit of sort of mystery, I'll call it, because there is that twist at the end. And I just loved it. I loved this so much. And if these are things that you like to read about, or these things that you yourself ruminate on, this idea of having meaning in your life, maybe you're not as dark and depressed as Cyrus is, and you're like trying to find a meaningful way to die, but perhaps you just feel the crushing weight of the world a little much on your shoulders. Perhaps you would like this book. I think that you would connect with it really well. There's also a lot of discourse, obviously, on Persian sort of history and culture and Iranian culture and being an immigrant to the US, and some touch points on the politics between Iran and the US during the Iranian Revolution and after. So that was interesting to get like little glimmers of, but it's very much about our characters and less about like broader stroking political, geopolitical things that are occurring. But obviously you can't avoid those things because they are very much a part of what makes up a person's life. They are not separate from each other. They color each other in some way. But the real focus is really on Cyrus and his uncle and his family and his relationship with Z and with the world and with life in general. And I loved it so much. I'm trying to find a quote that I really loved that is from his dad, and it's an inner thought of his dad's that I think really it really hit home for me, and I wonder if it'll hit home for some of you as well. I think I put it in my book journal, so let's see. So this is his dad is getting ready to go to work at the chicken farm, and they don't have an easy existence. His dad drinks. They don't have a lot of money. His dad finds meaning in his life through Cyrus, and so then the big question is, what is Cyrus going to find meaning? How is he going to find meaning in his own life? But Cyrus's dad says, "Living happened till it didn't. There was no choice in it. To say no to a new day would be unthinkable. So each morning you said yes, then stepped into the consequence." And I think that hit so home for me when I read that. This idea that despite everything, despite all the things that are crushing down around you, uh, that could be screwing with your mental health, that could make you want to just not do it anymore or to give up the fight, you have that choice every morning to say, am I going to step into this world and be a part of it, or am I not? And Cyrus's dad chooses every day, despite all the tragedy, all of the hardship, all the everything, to get up and go every day until the day he has a stroke and dies. And for him, his meaning was his son. And the thing that he leaves behind in this world, the mark he leaves in this world, is Cyrus. And now Cyrus, left alone, has to figure out what his mark on this world is going to be. And I just find it absolutely beautiful. I love that Cyrus continues to wake up every day and say, I'm going to step into the consequence of deciding to continue on. And I encourage you to please read this book, pick this up, read it now. So good. And watch some of the interviews with Kaveh Akbar. I think that they are stunning. He's a very interesting writer. He's a professor. I'm fascinated by his relationship that he has with Tommy Orange at this point, and they're like writing back and forth to each other. And Tommy Orange has a new book out as well. I think they tell stories very similarly with these like unfolding narratives with different points of view that kind of all collectively interlock with each other to create this like just stunning overall book. And yeah, please read Martyr. Pick it up today. Get it now. Go now. Go now. What are you doing? Turn off this video. Go get this book. Anyway, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want.